Hey everybody, it's April, and in our short course this month we are taking on some of the greatest fears that we have. And I asked you to take a look at where fear dictated how you approached life, whether in this past week where fear either had you hold back and pull back and have you play small in life, or where it had you act out in anger or act out in certain ways in life. And so I just wanted you to notice that. Today I want to take on the biggest fear that we all have, and that is the fear of death. And I want to suggest to you that this, not taking a look at this, is one of the things that leads us to be very ineffective, and it creates a lot of anxiety with us. But once we take it on straightforwardly, it can be very liberating. And so I want to suggest to you that the fact that you're fearing death is sort of like the person who is listening to somebody talk about the movie Titanic, and then they cover their ears and they say, la la la, I don't want to hear how it ends. You already know how the story ends. You already know how this all ends, don't you? I mean, from the moment you were born and you took your first breath, you started dying. That's part of the deal. Only it doesn't have to be this big, fearful thing. I mean, all of life is a coming home. And if you're from a particular spiritual tradition, then home looks different for you, but it's all about moving towards home, going back towards source, whatever that is for you. Whatever your spiritual tradition tells you that is. And even if you're not spiritual, you're still returning home. All of life is a going home, and home's not a bad place. Home isn't something to be feared. The interesting paradox that we create for ourselves in our minds is that we fear death, and so we don't want to take a look at it. We don't want to examine our thoughts about it. And then because we don't want to examine our thoughts about it, we fear it even more. And it creates this very vicious cycle where it creates this angst and this anxiety in us that's sort of diffuse but always present. And it has us pull back and be scared of things that we don't have to be scared of, and it has us play small when we don't have to play small. And the thing is that the more that you can look at death and understand it for what it is, as this inevitability, as a process that's already happening, started happening the day we took our first breath, that the more you examine where you're returning home, the anxiety starts to fall away. And now you can reverse that paradox. Now the paradox becomes that before, because we feared death, we used to act as if we would live forever. We used to put off today what we could do tomorrow, and somehow that relieved our anxiety. It's almost like death is going to come knocking at our door, but sorry death, I can't go right now. I've got this to-do list that I never quite got to, and death is going to say, oh okay, well, I'll come back later. You finish up what you're doing there. That's not how this works. But when you fear death, you put off tomorrow, you procrastinate, you act as if you're going to live forever, only you never live fully because there's always this fear in the background. When you accept death as part of the arrangement, something very interesting happens. The paradox flips. Now, all of a sudden, your life becomes more enriched, you become more in tune, because this day could be your last day. And if this day were your last day, if this action were your last action, if this word was your last word, could it stand as a fitting tribute for who you were in this world? Could it stand as a fitting tribute for the best that you had to offer? And when you approach each day like that, like my life is finite and I never know when death might come, and so this day let my actions and my words be a fitting tribute to what I want to leave behind, the legacy that I want to leave for myself and my family. When you come from that place, death is no longer scary, and your life is much more enriched and fulfilled. I hope you're doing well. I promise the next thought that we're going to take on is not as morbid as this one, but this was the most powerful fear that we had to take on. I enjoy your comments, and I would love to hear what you have to say, and I look forward to our future discussions about other fears in the coming weeks. Yours in peace, love, and light. Namaste.